A few years back, I got a little too invested in arguing politics with people on the internet. It was a problem. Not just because nothing ever gets solved or because feelings get hurt, but you get to experience some of the most poorly developed logic in the world being presented to you by someone who views themselves as a modern day Aristotle. There was one debate in which I was trying to make some point or another that I'm sure seemed important at the time, and I made sure I knew what I was talking about by citing sources and carefully constructing my response, tailing it for maximum effect in what I was sure was some PhD level explanation of all that was wrong with the world and how to fix it in 7 easy steps. I finished typing, hit the enter key, and waited for a response that would certainly take us further down the rabbit hole. In short, on a profound emotional level, I was ready for this to be my whole day. The notification finally hit. The sound on my phone had me as excited as a kid on Christmas. I clicked that magic button and his reply dropped like an atomic bomb, sending ripples through the space-time continuum in a manner that a mere mortal like myself can't even process. He put me squarely in my place, and showed me how my entire philosophy was wrong, and all the education I'd ever received on civics was pointless as he exclaimed, "Says the man who has a black cat." Wait, what the Here we were having a conversation about politics, and suddenly my having a black cat is relevant to the conversation. Is this because US presidents have historically had dogs? Is this a conspiracy of some sort? Why'd you say black cat? Is this a racial thing? It got me thinking, though, about how there is a bit of a stigma around men having cats. But back then, I didn't have a YouTube channel and didn't really have any outlet for this conversation. Then, years later, I saw it. Some page on Facebook pushed a story about how women who see a guy who has a cat with him in his dating profile is less likely to swipe right. Seriously, there was a whole study done by Colorado State U dedicated to finding out, ultimately, that a lot of women view cat guys as being less masculine, possibly more neurotic, and therefore less desirable. And the article which cited the study shared stories of guys who claim that women have said the dreaded words, "this isn't gonna work," when they find out that they're cat people. And the end lesson here that the two people who published this study wanted you to take away is, if you want to get laid, leave the cat out of the equation. Now, I'm personally not the type of person who frequently analyzes things like masculinity or femininity because I know how much of it is a pure creation of the time and place in which you happen to live. But my opinion alone doesn't make or break a subject. And so I took to Reddit to ask the important questions I'm positive 99% of the human race didn't even think was worth asking. I had to be careful with how I worded it, though, because I'm not just interested in whether a woman would swipe right, I'm interested in establishing what the general viewpoint is, and whether or not it is, like I said, a pure media creation. And shocker, it basically is. I posted a direct question, "Women, how do you view a guy who loves cats?" I posted it in the dating subreddit, and I explained a little bit about why I was asking, and 111 comments later, I found maybe 2 women who seemed to share that point of view. Now, to be clear, there were plenty of women who wouldn't date a guy who had cats, though almost all of those explained that the reason wasn't some perceived lack of masculinity or perceived neurosis. It was just that they weren't cat people or had allergies. Normal things. Much in the same way that I didn't go out of my way to date women with dogs back in the day, it wasn't because I'm making some kind of moral judgment about you as a dog owner. It's just never really liked dogs. One of my longest relationships, though, is with a woman who had 2, so it obviously wasn't something I felt too strongly about, which, again, kinda normal. So we have the replies to my question, which were overwhelmingly in the positive category. See what I did there? Love me a cat daddy. Literal green flag. Any woman who's turned off by a man liking cats probably has some weird issues. It makes 0 sense. There are dozens upon dozens of comments which all flow along the same general opinion. And then we have people who just don't like cats, along with some who are put off by seemingly specific situations they were in. I hate cats. They smell, shed everywhere, and every house I've ever been in that has cats stinks like poopy litter box. It's very hit or miss on whether they are even friendly or not, and half the time they don't even want to be around people and hide under the beds. Not to mention they tear stuff up with their nails. You get the idea, and I'd say that was maybe 15% of the comments were similar to this, albeit a bit less descriptive. But throughout all of this, there was literally only one person who brought up any notions of masculinity. This comment right here. Cats are okay, but it's a turn off when guys like them. I honestly don't understand why, but I do like very, very masculine men. And so of course I had to ask why the connection was being made between cats and masculinity, to which she replied, Most cats are psychopaths with way fewer emotions than ducks, dogs, elephants, etc. So when people call them, it turns me off, especially men. First is scientific fallacies here, which need to be addressed. Psychopathy is a human diagnosis which can't be factually attributed to any other species on the planet. There are no diagnostic criteria which allow for that whatsoever, and the range of feline emotion, like most animals, is something that we really only guess at anyways. We know cats, dogs, apes, etc. have emotions, but we aren't clear as to the specifics of those emotions yet. We know that cats have fewer facial muscles, which allow them to express emotions in ways that humans can readily process. So there is that, I guess. But what's really interesting is that this comment was as close as we got here to answering the question I wanted answered, and it really failed to do that. There weren't any connections made to how a cat being a psychopath or having fewer emotions translates into men being less masculine. Even if those things about cats were true, you could easily make the argument that a cat having fewer emotions would be appealing to a more masculine man, as Western society generally tries to beat out any displays of broad emotional range for men from a very young age. So here we are. I recognize that my Reddit post is not a scientific study, but I do feel like the results here call the actual study into question. Personally, I think the study was commissioned by Big K9 to try to manipulate the masses. It also warrants mentioning that the authors of the study freely admit that a good portion of this all boils down to how American culture has portrayed dogs as being more masculine than cats. But I don't really feel like we're any closer to understanding the whys and wherefores here. I wanted to make this a complete video, so I tried researching the concept. I tried to figure out the who, what, when, where, and how of this perception. But I really couldn't find anything more to it than people who just keep repeating it as though it's always been an objective fact of reality since the dawn of time. And I'm far from the only person who knows this, and very far from the only person to question it. So what we're left with here is a mystery. Are people just lying? Who are all these people who are assigning gender roles based on your perceived preference of pet? Do we need to take a serious look at women who have hamsters? Closing out this video, I really do feel like the entire concept of guys with cats being viewed as less masculine is one that probably does hold some small grain of truth to it. But like everything else in existence, that grain of truth gets taken by our vulturous media outlets and enlarged to a much bigger issue for the sole point and purpose of making you feel insecure. I know there are many points of view in this world, and many of them are extremely conflicting with each other. The important thing to always ask yourself when faced with a conflicting worldview is, how is it actually relevant to you? When we're talking about the 9 to 14% of women who would never date me because I have a cat, I'm okay with that. That is to say, if I were still single, I would be okay with that. We don't live in a world where you or I and all the things which make us up are supposed to be for everyone. Romance is, after all, about finding the right person for you. I was never hard up for a date back in the day. I had several long-term relationships and have been married for almost a decade now. Throughout most of that, I actually had 2 cats, so I don't rightly think me being a cat person was ever a hindrance. So if you think your little baby is the most precious fuzz muffin in the whole wide world, my personal suggestion to you would be to do what I did, and find a person who agrees with you. The evidence I've collected says that there's apparently no shortage of them. So thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, give it a like and maybe even subscribe. I try to release a video every week on a rare ailment or infrequently discussed cultural topic, and I desperately need the encouragement to keep going. Until next time.